Reconozco que hay un Dios poderoso. Estoy firme en mi fe. Reconozco que Él es el sanador y libertador. Jesús, me acercaré a ti. Jesús, 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 me acercaré a ti. Reconozco que hay un Dios poderoso. Estoy firme en mi fe. Reconozco que Él es el sanador y libertador. Jesús, me acercaré a ti. Oh, Jesús, 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 me acercaré a ti. Jesús, Jesús, me acercaré a ti.
Alright, guys, welcome to our debut episode 1 of Outspoken Podcast. I'm your host, Will, and before we get started, if you were curious as to what song that was Acércate by Brianna Jaylene. It is on all streaming platforms, so go ahead and download it, give it a listen, give it a view. I guarantee that it's going to minister to your life. Now, like I said, welcome, episode 1. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Will. I am 23 years old. I am from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I now reside in the beautiful sunshine state of Florida. Now, I know we're living in a time right now, right, where so many podcasts are coming out. There's so many people with bright ideas. There's people being creative out there. Shout out to those. Shout out to everybody that has a podcast, everybody that's creating a platform to express how they feel, to express how others feel. But the reason that we're creating Outspoken Podcast is mainly for those that are struggling with internal thoughts or struggling with things that, they're going through, but they have no way or no sense of expressing it or no way of getting it out there. That's what this podcast is going to be for, right? I remember growing up, it was really hard for me to express myself. It was really hard to get out there. And I would use the same excuse that a lot of youth use nowadays. I would say, yeah, I hold it in so that no one has to know what I'm going through because I can do this all by myself, yada, yada, yada. Well, let me tell you, that's not always the way to go. Allow me to tell you that I am a Jesus follower. I am Christian. I am a youth with ministry. I am one of the youth leaders at my church. I am a musician. I deal with the media at my church. If you don't have a church, by the way, just a little plug. If you don't have a church out in Florida, in the Valrico, Brandon, Riverview area, the doors to our church are always open. I go to Templo La Hermosa in Valrico, Florida. Pastors Reverend Luis Toro and Julia Toro. So if you're ever in the area, feel free to worship with us. Feel free to stop by. It is a judge free environment. And, we just love to worship. We love to seek God, and you're more than welcome to stop by. So, yeah, Outspoken is mainly for that. It's going to be, I've received topics a couple years ago. I had a huge desire to create this podcast. It kind of delayed for a sec, but we're here. We're here. So, round of applause to that. But it's mainly for those that are struggling. I've gotten so many questions. I remember I made a post on Instagram, and I said, hey, hit me with some topics or hit me with some questions you guys have, and we'll try and share them on the podcast. And a lot of the questions I got kind of were similar. They had to do with the topics of anxiety, depression, sadness, loneliness, figuring out what God really has in store for you, figuring out if God truly loves you, figuring out if God really has a purpose for your life. And that's this is where we're going to answer all those questions. This is where we're going to break things down. This is only episode 1. It's only episode 1. It's just a little appetizer. Just a little appetizer just so that you guys kind of see who's going to be leading these podcasts. We are going to have some guests because I don't like to just talk to myself. So we're going to have some guests pretty soon. We're going to have visuals pretty soon. But I just wanted to go ahead and get it started so that you guys see that we care about your opinion, we care about your questions, and we care about how you guys are feeling. Allow me to kind of explain, you know, my struggles growing up. My struggle growing up was always that I always felt like I didn't have anyone to share my thoughts with or share my feelings with. Or, I always felt like I was by myself, since I was always that smart kid who grew up in a tough neighborhood. So I had to be tough, but at the same time, I was super smart. So everyone would always bother me. Everyone would always push me to the side. I would always get name called, and especially growing up in church, you're kind of limited, right, to certain things that you can do. And I was limited very much so. My parents really cared about my well being, so they tried not to let me see as much as what would go on in the neighborhood or what would go on around town. So I was pretty limited. But when I would get to school, they would definitely bother me. They would definitely make fun of me because, well, I was a church boy, and no one really wants to be friends with the church boy, especially back then. I know now times are different, but back then, not everybody wanted to be friends with a church boy. He couldn't really do much. He couldn't talk like you. He couldn't walk like you. He couldn't act like you. So it was definitely tough, and I started to kind of guard those emotions. I didn't want to share them with anyone, so I would come home pretty upset. I would be mad at the world, and then going back home and just going through certain things at home where things weren't always easy. Shout out to my parents. My parents have always worked hard. They've always fought for what they've wanted. They've put us in a position to succeed, so I'm definitely glad for that. But growing up in a household where things were a bit tough, emotions weren't necessarily always shared. Things were not necessarily always spoken of. So it was really hard to figure out how to express yourself, how to talk, how to get your feelings across without things escalating. And growing up, that kind of built inside of me, so I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to talk. I didn't know how to say, look, this is how I feel. So in the midst of that, what happened? I started getting depressed. I started getting anxious. I started feeling alone, and I started making decisions that necessarily not only didn't please my life or weren't beneficial for my life, but they weren't pleasing to God. And I know that there's a lot of youth, especially in 2021. I mean, you can't tell me in 2021 that there isn't a bunch of chaos going on, because there is. There's positive things to look at. There are brighter sides. There are, there is greener grass. But in 2021, we have seen so much chaos that I am positive that there are younger people out there that need to hear these topics, because I'm pretty sure they're going through them. And that's what we're here for. We're here to speak on these topics. We're here to introduce you to topics that maybe you're not going through, but others are. And this is the perfect time, the perfect moment for them to be enlightened and for them to go ahead and empower others that, hey, maybe I'm not going through this, but let me share this information that I received, and I can encourage you, I can empower you to move forward and do what you have to do. That's what this is all about. We kind of misinterpret what it is to be a Jesus follower, what it is to be Christian, especially being a Pentecostal teenager, being a youth that grew up in the Pentecostal realm, we seem to kind of misinterpret what it is to share Jesus. And sharing Jesus is as simple as that. It's simply sharing Jesus. It's you telling the people, hey, he's full of love. He wants to love you. He wants to care for you. He wants to heal you. He wants to fix your heart. He wants to work in you. And that's all we're going to be doing here. This is going to be a judgment free zone. There will be no judgment here, because who am I to tell you what is right, what is wrong? I am simply here to use the Bible and say what is established in the Bible. But not only that, but use our personal experiences. What better way to explain the greatness of God than to use my own testimonies and to use the testimony of others, right? Because this isn't just about me, but this is going to be about other guests that are going to be speaking about what they feel, what they go through, and how they fought things off, right? So we're gonna have tons of topics here. Trust me, we're not gonna run out of topics. We're gonna stay as consistent as we can with this, because this is something that we've been wanting to do for such a long time, and we just want to stay consistent with it. We want to catch up with you guys. If you guys have questions, we're gonna have links down below where you can click them, and you can email us, you can message us, you can DM us. I'm gonna put all that in there so that way we can stay in touch, we can stay in tune. This is gonna be an awesome journey, an amazing experience, and I'm honestly excited for what's to come. I know God is gonna do great things, so stay tuned with us. Keep following us, keep catching up with us. I guarantee you're not gonna regret it. Things are gonna get You're gonna get pretty interesting. So stick around with us. Thank you guys for listening in the first episode. The other episodes are going to be longer, I promise. This was just a bit of an introduction. So, welcome, guys, to Outspoken. And stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this.
No creo